Welcome to Trust Your Eyes. It's been some time in the making, but we are finally here. The basic premise of this show is we'll discuss and debate the latest news and stories in the AFL. It'll be a bit more opinionated than the other content on this channel and will feature other perspectives throughout the 2024 season. The show's rundown is next to me, outlining each of the segments, so without any further of a wait, let's start. The big news over the last few days was that Bailey Smith tore his ACL at training. The 23-year-old was coming into a pivotal 2024 hoping to regain form. What makes the scenario worse is that he's out of contract at the end of the season. Obviously, this has become quite a complex situation for Bailey Smith and the Western Bulldogs, but I think the overarching theme is this is just devastating for a player who really needed a big 2024 to kind of reprove himself as an elite or at least a very good AFL player, because we hadn't seen it for a very long time. So it just robs him of the opportunity to do so. But going back to his form, his 2023 was in many ways kind of a write-off. It was his lowest player rating of his entire career, even worse than his first season, and his kicking efficiency was just at 52.2%, which is also the worst of his career. So he just never could get any rhythm. He had a couple good games in the middle of the season, but just never got fully going. And it kind of goes back to a debate that I've been seeing in the media a little bit, kind of his form and the role he's been playing. But just to point out that it really has been Bailey Smith that the struggles have been on. When was the best we saw Bailey Smith? It was back in 2021 in that final series, specifically the semi-final and the prelim final. But for that whole season, he attended 29% of the Western Bulldogs centre bounces, so a little over 1 in 4. Well, this year, he was at 30% of the centre bounces. So the role from his best football to now in 2023 was pretty much the same. It was mainly that half forward that would move up to the field and play in the middle of the ground. And specifically for those finals, the semi-final against Brisbane, when he had 27 touches to go along with the 3 goals, he attended just 12% of those centre bounces. And then the following week against Port, when he had another 20 and 4 goals, he didn't attend a single centre bounce. He's at 0% for the centre bounces in that game. So again, the role he's playing back then and the role he's playing now before the injury was pretty much the same. So Bailey Smith definitely has been out of form. And again, this robs him of the opportunity to establish himself back and maybe get an opportunity to be a high centre bounce player like Bonampelli, McRae and Liberatore. But they've got to battle through the speculation this season. It's going to be tough, and it's already started. I saw Mitch Cleary was already interviewing Bailey Smith outside of the Western Bulldogs' new facilities. So throughout the season, especially if the Bulldogs start slow, they're going to have to hear non-stop questions about Bailey Smith, and they're going to have to deal with it. But with Bailey Smith's contract, his off-field is going to help him regardless get paid. He's got all the brands and the endorsements. So even if he never gets back to his 100% self, a team like Collingwood, Hawthorn and Geelong, they'll believe they can get him back to at least 90, 95%. And the off-field stuff will be huge. Imagine him at a Collingwood with Nick Dacos and Tom Mitchell. He'd probably be, if he isn't already, one of the biggest stars in the game. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Hopefully we can see Bailey Smith back this year. Maybe if the Bulldogs can make finals, he can return, but it will be interesting to see. So let me know what you think about the Bailey Smith injury. We move to another young star. Connor Rozee is the Power's new captain and signed a huge 8-year contract. The 23-year-old has had back-to-back All-Australian seasons and won a Best and Fairest in 2022. Is this a good deal for Port and Rozee? Whenever these big deals come out, there does seem to be a lot of feeling of negativity towards them, especially in the media. But for Rozee and Port, this won't just be a good deal. I think this will be a great deal for a long, long time. Now, what's the first thing that you think of when we have a look at this Port Adelaide team? For me, and I think a lot of Port fans and maybe general AFL fans, it's Rozee and Butters. They're the heart, the soul of this team and the engine of it. And Port seem to play as those two players play in In the finals, they kind of went a little bust and they got knocked out in straight sets, but to more experienced teams. And I think that'll hold them for good stead in the future. But when we look at Rozee's career so far, from his second year onwards to now, he's kind of incrementally improved at a steady rate. He didn't take a big jump like Butters did, from 2022 to 2023. His player rating has gone up for the majority of these seasons, and he's getting more of the ball than ever and having a lot of impact on the game, and it's been great to see. I think the only issue with signing a big deal, and it's for all of them, but specifically for Rozee, is probably the durability. That second season, he was a little bit injured, but he's been pretty good from then on. I think he's played 45 games straight or something around that. The last 2 seasons, he's really been on the park a lot with Butters. And, they play bash and crash. It's high octane, high pressure. And their bodies have held up kind of surprisingly well because both of them are still quite slender. And I think when they picked Rozee as captain, it was between him and Butters, but probably because he's from South Australia and Butters is from Victoria, Rozee probably just gets the nod, and I think it's great. He looks the part, he speaks well, the fans adore him, and I think the AFL in general adores him because he's had no off-field trouble at all, and he's been great. And the other thing is, he does seem to have a great relationship with Ken Hinckley, and that can only help. So if you can have kind of continuity from the CEO all the way down to the coach and then the captain, about their clear ambition and goals, I think it'll hold them in good stead. And the 8-year deal as well helps the list management out and the club because they can spread his money longer. And say they have $1 million spare in the cap, just for example, you can maybe pay Rozee an extra $500,000 this year to later down the road. You don't have to, and you can get some better players or re-sign some players. So that's what I think about the Rozee contract. I love it. I think it'll work out pretty well, but let me know what you think. Up next, the Eyes 8, the current top 8 teams in the AFL. This is the first edition of the Eyes 8. Now, to make this clear, this isn't a ladder prediction for the early part of the season or the entirety of it, but it's just the current best 8 teams in the AFL. Probably in the season, we'll do this weekly, and it will definitely evolve throughout the year. To get started, number 8, Melbourne. I still like their defence. Jake Lever and Stephen May are great. The midfield's top end is solid, but they did lose some depth in Jordan and Harms, but it's the midfield and the off-field issues that are the big problems. They need Van Rooyen to stand up and probably need Cozzy Pickett to go to the next level. Number 7, Port Adelaide. They fixed their biggest issue, which was the key defence. Radaglia and Zerk Thatcher aren't world beaters or superstars, but they should be good enough, and they free up a lead to intercept, and that's what he does best. Now, the midfield is a little Butters and Rozee centric, but if Horne-Francis can keep improving and Ollie Wines can get back to some of his Brownlow form, they should be okay. And they can't trust Charlie Dixon anymore, so Todd Marshall, Georgiadis and Ollie Lord need to step up. Number 6, Sydney. I like but don't love Grundy and Adams' acquisitions. I think Grundy can still be top 6, 7 or 8 ruck, and Adams will definitely help them early in the season without Callum Mills. They're young, fast and skilled, and nobody leaves Logan McDonald and Joel Amati to shoulder the load, and it'll be interesting to see if they can do it. But I like Sydney at 6. Number 5 is Adelaide. They really should have played finals last year, and they'll probably be a big ladder riser in a lot of people's early predictions. A lot of people will probably have them top 4. Dawson and Laird are great in the midfield. They add Daniel Curtin as a draft pick to help the key defence, and at home they're going to be very hard to beat. And they've got one of the most formidable forward lines with Taylor Walker, Fogarty and the Smalls and Rankin and Rochelle. They got to fix the away record. Just 2 wins and 8 losses interstate. If they can get that up, they should be okay. Number 4, Collingwood. They drop a few places, obviously, from a premiership win. It's not necessarily that I think Collingwood will be bad next year, but I think there's a few teams that are above them. And the other concern is the veterans. Pendlebury and Sidebottom do seem to be getting better with age, but surely there's a point where they do drop off a little bit, and they need some of the younger guys and maybe a couple of the draftees to keep going. But Collingwood's at 4. Number 3 is Carlton. I like their list. The squad is pretty good all round. I do worry about them under expectation, which they had at the start of last year, and they kind of fell away, and with no expectation, they obviously went on the run to a prelim final. So that's something to keep an eye on early. The defense is great. Wiedering is very, very good. Mitch McGovern, when he's healthy, is great. And they get Zach Williams, complement Sard. And then Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay. Can't ask for a much better of a 1-2 punch if Mackay can kick straight. And the one weakness is the smalls. I think Jesse Motlop has some potential. So maybe if he can get up to high 30s or 40 goals, that won't be a weakness anymore. Number 2, GWS. They have the most talented group in the entire competition. They have high draft picks everywhere and they show it. Similar to Sydney, they're young, fast, skilled. The midfield has a senior core in Kelly and Canelio, but they have the young guns in Callahan and Tom Green following them. It's great. They have the best small combination in the entirety of the AFL. Brent Daniels, Toby Bedford, and obviously the captain Toby Green. A bit of an issue could be the key forwards. Jesse Hogan had a great year, but he has shown to be a little up and down. And Jake Riccardi's probably a number 2 forward in reality. And if Aaron Cadman can maybe kick 30 to 40 goals, that would be a huge bonus. But the number 1 team right now is the Brisbane Lions. They were kickoff winning a grand final, and I didn't think they really played all that great. They get Ashcroft back, maybe early in the year, if not round 1, to complement their midfield. Dunkley and Neal are still solid. Majority of their players are in their prime. Harris Andrews is one of the best defenders in the competition. And like Adelaide, they have a monster forward line that is almost impossible to stop all of them, with Bailey, Hipwood, Danaher, and Charlie Cameron, of course. And they still have a bit of improvement. Kadeem Coleman shows flashes, but he can fade. I think Cam Rayner can go up another level. So I like Brisbane at 1. And obviously the Gabba is pretty much the best home ground advantage in the entirety of the AFL. Again, let me know what you think about this list. It is early, but they are the current best 8 sides in the AFL. But up next, the Clayton Oliver situation. And to finish off, Clayton Oliver will face court in January for driving while his licence was suspended due to the medical episode that caused him to have a seizure. It's another cause for concern. So at this point, what impact is Oliver's behaviour having on the Deags premiership hopes? Now this also, the news follows on from this, that Oliver was not sent home, but kind of, I guess, agreed to go home from the Melbourne 4-day camp in their pre-season. So clearly there's some big issues, and I don't want to speculate, but they're saying mental health and his actual overall physical health. So it's concerning, and need to make it clear. I do wish Oliver the best and hope he can come back, because the competition's always better when the best players are playing. But if I had to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, kind of as a distraction, I think it's above a 5 at this point, and it has to be a 6. You know, the trade speculation came out of nowhere, and think about if you're a Melbourne player or staff member or a coach, you turn on the TV and everywhere on the news is, you know, this Oliver stuff. It has to be kind of getting deep in the psyche, and it follows on from the Simon Goodwin rumours, and it was only last year the Stephen May and Jake Melksham fight. So it's been a bad run for the club, and they really need to sort it out if they want to get to a grand final. It all seems very bizarre. I don't know anything about Clayton Oliver personally, or haven't heard that much, but he always seemed a little kind of goofy from the outside, a little different, but in a good way, and his performances on the field never seem to be affected by these issues. And the club has said that these issues have gone on for a long period of time now. So I'm guessing maybe a couple, 2 or 3 years, which is interesting. We know he's a beast of a midfielder, high clearance, high possession winner, and that's what he does best. And so it will consume the club if it continues on, if they can't figure it out, if Oliver can't get better. And they're clearly trying. He obviously had that big meeting where they sat him down and said, we're not going to trade you if you buy in. And he, I'm guessing, admitted that he wanted to buy in. So they gave him a second chance in that way. And he moved in with Max Gawn and his wife. It's unclear if they're still living together, but that was to kind of recalibrate him and get him on path and get his professionalism right. So hopefully he's learnt maybe something from Max Gawn, and the talking tos can work out. But so far they clearly haven't been, and it must be concerning for the club. And if this continues on, what percentage can we give Melbourne to win a premiership? Even if he does play, but the distractions keep coming up. I think it would have to be less than 10%. Don't want to make big statements early, but if one of your best players is either not there or is there, but maybe his head and heart isn't, it's very hard to overcome even for just one player. So again, I hope Clayton Oliver can get back to his best, and if any of you guys have any kind of thoughts about it, or you still think Melbourne can have a go without Oliver maybe being on the team, let me know. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of Trust Your Eyes. This will continue to improve throughout the season. We'll get some guests on also throughout the season for different topics and different teams. Any feedback, please feel free to leave it down below. It'll all help out in the future. Maybe any segments you'd like to see or any topics. I would really appreciate it. It would be very helpful to kind of grow and improve this show in the future. So once again, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon.